Naoya Inoue conquered the biggest challenge of his career, but boxing never stops moving. And with Bam Rodriguez continuing to build momentum, another elite threat is emerging on the horizon. Now, Naoya Inoue has already overcome one of the toughest tests of his career in Junto Nakatani. But after Bam Rodriguez's latest victory, a new question is beginning to emerge. Could Bam be the next great challenge for the monster? Now, at this stage of his career, Inoue's credibility as an elite boxer, it's beyond dispute. He has won world titles across multiple weight divisions, unified championships, and defeated world-class opposition. More importantly, he continues to pass every test placed before him. The power is devastating, the timing is exceptional, and the mentality is relentless. Few fighters in the modern boxing have built such a complete and convincing legacy. And let's establish some context. Before the fight, many believe Junto Nakatani represented the biggest challenge of Inoue's career. The size difference was obvious. The reach advantage was obvious. The power was obvious. From a Japanese perspective, it was arguably the biggest fight in the nation's boxing history. Nakatani entered the contest with genuine belief, and many felt he possessed the physical tools required to trouble Inoue. And what made the challenge so fascinating was the combination of skill and physical advantages. Nakatani was not simply the bigger man, he was an elite fighter with excellent timing, sharp technique, and real punching power. Questions were asked about whether Inoue could overcome these obstacles. So by defeating Nakatani, Inoue answered many of those questions and strengthened his position amongst boxing's pound-for-pound elite. Now, while Inoue was enhancing his legacy substantially. Jesse Bam Rodriguez was building one of his own. His victory against Vargas on Saturday, further enhanced his credibility as one of the best fighters in the world. Bam controlled angles, defended intelligently, and adapted throughout the contest. It was another performance that demonstrated why so many observers place him among boxing's elite operators. And what is the challenge of Bam? Well, Bam is a very different challenge to what Nakatani brought to the table. Bam relies less on physical advantages and more on technical excellence. His footwork is outstanding. His explosiveness allows him to create opportunities, and these opportunities, they come from unexpected positions. His adaptability enables him to solve problems in real time. When combined with his ring IQ and his offensive credibility and creativity, these qualities make him a nightmare, an absolute nightmare opponent. Now, the cultural importance, and I often speak about cultural importance of a potential Inoue-Bam fight, I think would be enormous. These are two of the most respected fighters in boxing today. Their reputations extend beyond individual weight classes. Economically, the fight could become a big event. It would attract international attention, generate substantial revenue, and further strengthen boxing's profile across multiple markets and audiences. So who would be taking the greater risk? And in life, everything involves risk. And I think there's a strong argument that who's taking the greater risk is Inoue. He has already defeated Nakatani and removed what many considered his greatest domestic threat. Inoue's legacy is established. When we talk about his commercial value, it's immense, it's exponential. Every elite challenger now represents a significant risk because the expectations from him are so high. And when you sit at the top, there is always more to lose. And the question remains, is Bam now Inoue's biggest challenge? There is certainly a strong argument. Beating Inoue requires more than courage and talent. You must disrupt his rhythm, survive his pressure, and consistently make intelligent adjustments. Now, Bam possesses the footwork, he possesses the explosiveness, the adaptability, and the ring IQ to attempt to do this. But whether it is enough, that remains at this point uncertain. But the challenge is undeniably a serious one. So let's put our cards on the table and go into a bit more detail. So the first statement is that Inoue has firmly established himself as one of boxing's elite fighters. I don't think many people would disagree with this assertion. Inoue is elite. He has won multiple world championships. His CV is extensive. And I don't know if you can challenge that. The one thing you can challenge, and you can challenge this with anyone, or with a lot of fighters, you could say, was the competition great in his era? You could make that argument, but undeniably, he's not ducked anyone. He's beaten world champions, and he really has cemented himself as an elite fighter. So the second statement was Nakatani was widely viewed as the biggest challenge of Inoue's career. I would agree with that assertion. It was a significant challenge, and it was a massive cultural event, and that's significant. You know, it's important to realize that Junto Nakatani, he brought a serious CV as well. He was a world champion, an unbeaten fighter. He had the psychology of an unbeaten fighter, and he had certain advantages, particularly reach. He had this lovely overhand left counter, and he brought a lot to the table, and that was actually a difficult fight. Inoue had to make adjustments in that fight. He had to show his ring IQ. So, you know, I think definitely that was a big challenge, and you could make a compelling argument that it was one of his biggest challenges. And then we have the statement, by defeating Nakatani, Inoue answered questions about size and physical disadvantages. And I think you have to agree with that. You know, there was a size and physical disadvantage against Nakatani, and Inoue handled that well. He persevered, and he evolved with the ultimate boxing philosophy, which is to be hit and not be hit. And yes, he did get hit. But when I say that, I mean that Inoue used his boxing ring IQ. He used movement. He was in and he was out. He used constant feints. He adapted. He slowed down the tempo. He upped the tempo. He set traps. He altered his punch trajectory. First, he started off with straight rights, but then later on in the fight, then he evolved with the uppercuts. So he made adjustments, and he made a big statement, in my opinion. Then we've got the statement, Bam Rodriguez strengthened his reputation with an impressive victory over Vargas. And again, I agree with that assertion. Bam has a very strong CV. He is a champion. He brings a lot to the table, but with every victory, he's bringing more to the table in terms of not just the opponents that he beats, but also the visibility that he's getting and the virality that he's getting in the way that he's winning his fights. So the next statement is that Bam's footwork, his explosiveness, and his adaptability makes him a unique threat. So that's three elements there: footwork, explosiveness, and adaptability. So let's deal with each one. Footwork is an underrated element in boxing. That's number one. And it's such an important element in boxing. For reference, look at the Muhammad Ali fight against Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston was a feared, intimidating champion, but Muhammad Ali's footwork in that fight was so significant, and his footwork was significant in many fights. Footwork is a major element of boxing. And when I look at Bam's footwork, it's weird because he can be stagnant, but then all of a sudden he does this really explosive footwork. And it kind of reminds me of like a Usyk and Lomachenko, but then at the same time, he can stay in the pocket. So it's like weird. It's like on one, he changes the rhythm, he changes the tempo. He goes from standing still with the high guard to then exploding with these footwork angles. So I think his footwork is a unique threat because his footwork is unique. The way he uses his feet is unique. His transitions are unique. With regards to his explosiveness, that again, I think, is unique. I haven't seen Inoue fought someone who has the explosiveness as Bam. Again, he seems to have this rhythm change where he'll go quiet and then he'll explode. So I think that's unique. And his adaptability, we don't know how good he is at adapting because I have not seen him being put in dangerous situations, but he seems to have an ability to adapt on the fly. However, his adaptability is unique, as his footwork and his explosiveness, I'm not sure. That remains to be seen. So the next statement is an Inoue and Bam fight would have major cultural and economic significance. Again, we've got two phases to that: the cultural significance and the economic significance. I think it will have a cultural impact. I think Inoue is so big that anytime he fights, you've got like two major audiences. You've got the boxing world audience, and then you've got the Japanese audience. And everyone tunes in for Inoue. So just from that perspective alone, you have a massive cultural impact. But then you've got Bam's audience as well. So yes, we have, the potential of having something culturally big. How big? I guess that remains to be seen if the fight is made. And I would say the economic significance, it's economically significant because of how light they are in terms of their weight. Because naturally, lighter weight fighters mostly get paid less. You can obviously bring up exceptions to the rule, like Floyd Mayweather, but exceptions are not the general rule. But generally speaking, lighter weight fighters get paid less. But in a way, he's so big that he generates a lot of money and he gets paid very well. So economically, when you factor in the context of the weight division, I think it is significant. So I think it's economically significant and it's culturally significant. And then we have the statement of, is Inoue taking the bigger risk because of his legacy is already secure? And I think clearly the answer to that is yes, because Inoue is the elite great fighter already. Bam, you could argue, is great, is elite, but I feel that if Bam beats Inoue, that would be such a massive thing for his legacy. But if Inoue beats Bam, yes, it solidifies and it makes a statement, but it's not as big as a statement because Inoue is already at the top of the mountain. So I think with regards to who's got more to gain, it's Bam. Now I'm assuming because of that, with regards to negotiations and economics, I'm assuming that Inoue's team will negotiate more money. So in regards to money, it will be a bigger paycheck, I would assume, for Inoue because of the risk. But in terms of legacy, there definitely is a greater risk for Inoue. So I'll end it on this note. Think of this. This is potentially a great fight. You have two elite fighters, a great cultural moment, and an amazing treat for boxing fans. This is one for the boxing purists, but when you include the entertainment factor, it will attract the casual boxing fans as well. This could be a big moment in boxing. Two potential outcomes: a new legend created, or legendary status is reconfirmed. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. That means I'm interested in your comments, I'm interested in your questions, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, simply like and subscribe and click the hype button. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.